Good morning, Brownsville. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this feed. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Frankie Olivo. Our program focuses on the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices, and we've allowed for our platform, this mic, to be that of the voice of the people. Now, this is something that you can see yourself supporting, but we ask that you join the cause. Make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. Currently, right now, this live program is being streamed on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Facebook. We could be found under Frankie Olivo. But more importantly, if you haven't already, create a Gmail account, go to YouTube, like, follow, and subscribe to our channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. It's free. Remember, Brownsville, I will never ask you for money. I will never ask you for food. If you want us to continue to provide you with the latest information that is happening within our area, all we ask is something in return, is something that won't cost you a dime. All we ask of you is support the cause by following all of our social media platforms. Why, you may ask? Why do we keep on asking you? Because there might be a time where you may not find our main page on Facebook with over 45,000 followers. We might go dark. We have people that don't want you to know what's really happening. Our page is constantly getting reported. They're trying to take down the page. As of late, our Facebook page is at risk of being taken down. The powers that be do not want you, the voter, the people, to know the truth. But remember, we will not be silenced. So if you're really about the cause and you want to stand up to corruption and you want to hold our elected leaders and those in leadership positions accountable, you know what to do. Make sure that you subscribe and follow all of our social media platforms. Remember, Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday through Friday religiously. So make sure that you are subscribed to Frankie Olivo TV on YouTube to tune in. That is a place where we will always be and always could be found, just in case you don't see us anymore on Facebook. Always remember, we will not be silenced. And we are forever grateful to each and every one of you for the time and attention that you provide us. Thank you, Brownsville, for that. How we doing, chat? How we doing? Happy Tuesday. Feels weird being back in the office. I had a restful weekend. My team was frantically trying to get a hold of me for a couple of days. I needed some time off with the Super Bowl. And for those that aren't aware, to me, the Super Bowl is always like a big thing. I always travel. I always go out Super Bowl weekend. So Monday's always like my downtime. The weekend and Monday is always my downtime. Wasn't as active on social media over the weekend, but back to reality. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a week away from the start of early voting. Everything that these candidates have worked for is down to a few days. This is a time where campaigns often try last minute resorts to try and get their message out to the people. What's important through this all is that you as a voter, you need to make your last minute questions. Are you convinced in regards to a candidate's position? How will that candidate benefit you moving forward? Does a candidate have more question marks than answers? This election has been very weird. Again, I will never claim to be a political guru, but we have been following local races for quite some time now, and these races have been very, very different, to say the least. And that's something that we'll be covering today, and what to expect, because the hard work is over. Can candidates try and sway public opinion at the 11th, 12th hour, 1 week away? Possibly. working a campaign and running a campaign, your mindset is you're always behind. You're 500 votes behind. You need to get your message across. You need to work until the very last minute where the polls close on election day. People who run for public office, that's how they're trained. You need to act like you're down. You need to act like you're losing. You need to do everything possible to disseminate your message. You need your team to be block walking, to make phone calls, to make sure that the people that you have on your list went out to vote. And if they didn't, do they have a ride? Today, I want to talk about a little bit about what happens within the camps, talk a little bit about the camps, what happens 1 week away from the start of early voting. And that is how we will start today's show. But first, a word from our sponsor.
I've dedicated my life to public service, but now I see a county that's ready for change. It's time to bring accountability, transparency, and efficiency to how your tax dollars are managed. We can lower taxes and make government work smarter for you. I'm Jonathan Gracia, and I humbly ask for your vote for Cameron County Treasurer, so together we can build a better future.
Whenever we talk about campaigns, I'm sure you possibly have already been saturated with with correspondence from the different candidates. And it's important for you, the voter, to try and have as much information as possible, because at the end of the day, these individuals are asking for something very, very sacred. Well, it should be sacred to you, your vote, because at the end of the day, they want to be our local representatives. With about a week away from early voting in Cameron County, these local candidates, they typically ramp up any last minute campaign activities. They want to be able to connect with the voters. They possibly may want to sharpen their message. Maybe something wasn't clear, or maybe they want to focus a little bit more on a certain talking point. They want to boost the turnout that they expect, because every candidate, ladies and gentlemen, as of right now, they have numbers, they have data. They're counting on their base to go out and vote for them. That is how elections work. At the end of the day, there's a science behind it. It's a numbers game. We can be, the most prettiest, the most handsome out there, but if we don't have a team, if we don't have people supporting, if we don't have people donating to your camp, if you don't have a message that resonates with people, are you going to come across as someone that the voter could relate to, that they want, that they even know? Usually around this time is when the candidates, they're increasing their door-to-door canvassing and phone outreach. Hey, can we count on your support? This is Mayra Flores' team. This is Eric Flores' team. This is Joey Lopez's team. This is Joseph Lucio. This is Steve Guerra's team. This is Eddie Trevino's team, Eric Garza's team. Can I count on your support? The candidates also, they attend community events. They want to make sure that what you're seeing on social media and what they're advertising about their platform does resonate with the people. They want to remind voters of the importance of early voting. They say that again, running a campaign is a science behind it, and it's a lot of integral moving parts, to say the least. They say that in elections are usually won in early voting. That, and what we've seen and what we're going to talk about throughout the course of the program, is the mail-in ballots. That here in Cameron County has been a big thing because there are allegations of voter fraud. Does that exist throughout the state of Texas? Of course. We in Cameron County have seen our fair share of voter fraud, unfortunately. When we talk about the last week, candidates, they often focus on local issues. What's most important? What infrastructure projects they want to focus on, any public safety, education, or any concerns that the community has. Well, the candidate, they're listening to the people, or they should be listening, or at least their team should be saying, hey, this is what the people are asking. What's your stance on this? And as a candidate, you want to be able to reach that voter. You want to persuade possibly undecided voters. You want to ensure that they are motivated to vote for that candidate at the start of early voting. So from here till next Tuesday, February 17th, we're going to see how different camps of these candidates will get out the vote. These efforts are crucial because, especially in tight local races where early participation, it can set the tone for the overall turnout. Now, you may ask, is it too late? Are campaigns, are races already decided? Have the people already decided in their mind who they're going to vote for, and whatever these candidates try to throw at us last minute, it's going to be to no avail? Possibly. When I think about the congressional race, and that's a very interesting race for Congressional District 34, it is my opinion that this race is already locked in. When we think of geographically, the district, it encompasses 750 potential voters from Brownsville all the way up until Nueces, Corpus Christi. That's a large amount of votes out there. What we have seen from these candidates in the 34 congressional race has been a grassroots movement by Mayra Flores, who has, for the past 5-6 years, been actively campaigning and reaching the voters door to door. She stated that her team has knocked on over 100,000 doors since 2021. She has a name recognition. People know who she is, compared to her opponent, Eric Flores, who has received all these endorsements from senators, governors, even the president of the United States. But he himself is having a hard time resonating with the people. What many candidates don't focus on is, could people relate to me as a candidate? We could have all the money in the world. We could have all these commercials, all these endorsements. But if the people don't relate to you, who could relate to a career prosecutor? Not many people. And if you've seen his camp, they've gone away from that. Now they're attacking Mayra. You know it's bad whenever a candidate focuses on the opponent rather than talking about what they're going to do, what their platform is, what their goals are. And I find that funny, because to me in that race, it's already over. Eric Flores is polling at anywhere from 13 to 18%. And that's with all these endorsements. That's not a good look. Whenever we talk about, what else were we going to talk about? Social media. What have we been seeing from social media? Social media is obviously an avenue where voters consistently talk about their platform, their goals, their vision, but it doesn't really mean that, people or candidates should throw all of their campaign behind social media. Now, there is a science to it, right? I don't want you to think that, and me being on social media, you might think, oh well, so then your job is not important. Yes, it's important. Social media is a part of our everyday lives. Everyone is on social media. Do people read the paper anymore? I would dare say we're fading away from that. And people here on social media before you, we have a big responsibility of providing facts. And that is something that I try wholeheartedly to do. Whenever I talk to you about what is going on, it's because there's substance there. There's something that I can't reveal because ultimately they're going to be able to link the source. And my job, as much as possible, is to protect my source as much as possible. Because I want these people to keep on confiding in me and bringing me this information because it's very important. What I've noticed from social media is that we're going to a place where it's leading towards defamation. And that is something that Juan Montoya posted earlier today. Whenever we accuse candidates of something, well, there needs to be some sort of concrete evidence. At the end of the day, anybody could make allegations, anybody could accuse people, but if there is no factual evidence behind it, is that going to resonate with the people? Yesterday, I had a friend ask me, are you going to talk about Brownsville news? And I was like, why? Well, what they're claiming. They even made what did they say? They even made a Frankie Webb. I was laughing. I was like, a Frankie Webb? What are you talking about? You see, these people think that they want that shock, that, look, I got him. You see? Ladies and gentlemen, if you are to believe a faceless Facebook account that doesn't have the balls to show you their face or doesn't have the balls to make these accusations to these candidates, if you believe them, I don't know what to tell you. The difference between them and I is that I show you my face. These candidates, they know who's talking. I have nothing to hide. So, does social media play a role? Yes. But if you look at all these shares, and somebody said it to me, and to me it's irrelevant. First, it's a faceless page that is making serious accusations without any facts. And whenever they share this page, they share it to like the Brownsville Matamoros Pulga pages. They don't even vote. And I hate to sound bad. It's going to sound horrible, but the majority of these people, they're uneducated. They don't vote. And you have Steve Guerra's camp thinking, you see, we're winning, we're up. You're not. Whenever a candidate relies solely on social media, it's not a good thing. One thing I have learned is that, yes, social media is a part of it, but if you're not door knocking, if people don't know your name, if people don't even know what your platform is, do we expect the people to vote for you? Now, again, no candidate is perfect. No political party is perfect. But at the end of the day, it is my belief that people, they want to be able to relate to a person. They want to be able to know what that person does. Has someone such as Steve Guerra convinced the community And again, it's Cameron County. It's not just Brownsville that he needs to sway. Do people know what he does, what his profession is, what his goals are, what's his stance on SpaceX, LNG? What's his goals for the future of Cameron County? I don't know. I haven't heard him speak. There have been forums that have been set aside by the party. Does the party itself, the party leadership, do they know where Mr. Steve Guerra falls in regards to the issues? I think Steve Guerra thinks that people are going to vote for him just because of his name. In that particular race, it's a very interesting race because I have not seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have not seen one sign from Eric Garza throughout Cameron County. Now, in his defense, Eric Garza has won a county-wide race 3 times. He's won 2 district clerks race, and most recently, the sheriff. Eric Garza has name recognition. People know who he is. People remember the name. Maybe he doesn't need campaign signs. Maybe he doesn't need to be out there as much as possible. But does Steve Guerra have that same recognition? Does Steve Guerra have 5, 6, 7,000 votes? I don't know. Steve Guerra at the port got 2,700 votes. Is that enough to dethrone the candidate? Is that enough to lead into a runoff? Maybe, possibly. I don't know. I'm just here asking questions at the end of the day. Also, another thing that happens is daycares, ladies and gentlemen. Daycares are subject to be used by candidates. We have received word of teams being in cahoots with these candidates, where these candidates pay for daycares. And look, I'm not here inventing things. I'm not here, making things up. In Cameron County, there is documented instances of voter fraud that have been relatively rare, and they do involve specific cases that include widespread illegal voting. One important race that comes to mind is the 2012 Democratic primary, where individuals were charged with illegal possession of marked ballots and fraudulent voting practices. These individuals here in Cameron County, they were convicted for improper assistance or voting more than once in that same election. Voter fraud is real, ladies and gentlemen. You would think that now, with the law bearing down on these individuals, that they would try their best to avoid that. That doesn't seem to be the case. Whenever we talk about instances of voter fraud, names that always get brought up is Abel Gomez, Precinct 2 Constable, and Aaron Hernandez Garcia, where people in their camps, they have been arrested. They have been charged. And you may think, oh, well, you're just singling out Aaron Hernandez Garcia. No, I'm not. Oh, you're using the blogs to try and push the narrative of this. The blogs serve as a way for me as a community member. The blogs serve as history. Whenever you go to the Brownsville Herald, to Valley Central, whenever you try to search for a story, they're gone. They're not there. This, to me, the blogs serve as a way for me to touch back on certain cases and say, this is what's going on back in the day. where the state of Texas and the United States Attorney General's office, they did begin to indict people. And back in 2014, 8 women have been charged with voter fraud through mail-in ballots as a part of the 2012 runoff election for the Democratic primary. And those candidates that received the assistance of these politiqueras that were charged with voter fraud, according to this article from July of 2014 by Juan Montoya, the parties that benefited from these individuals that were charged with voter fraud were Carlos Mazo, Abelardo Gomez, and Aaron Hernandez Garcia. Is this something that possibly Aaron Hernandez Garcia is going to be doing? Maybe. Is it fair to say that when there's smoke, there's fire? Usually, right? And not only that, not only has the state of Texas, the United States Attorney's Office been indicting people. Well, there have been candidates that they themselves have filed lawsuits against Ernie Hernandez Garcia and Aaron Hernandez. Ernie Garcia was a former county commissioner. So you had Ruben Peña and Yolanda Begum, who did file lawsuits alleging voter fraud. Now, is this what we want from people? Is this who we want in office? That's something that you are going to have to answer. Because ultimately, these individuals, they're asking for your vote for a very important position, a state district judge position. But it seems as if whenever Aaron Hernandez Garcia runs, there's always something regarding voter fraud. And I'm not making this up. Again, you had 8 people in her camp that helped her team be indicted. Now, the candidate could use the argument that, oh well, I pay them, but I don't know what they do. They know exactly what they do. That's the reason why they hire them. Why would Ruben Peña and Yolanda Begum 2 different times file a lawsuit against Aaron Hernandez Garcia, accusing her father, her family, her team of manipulating the votes? Because it happens. You see, people prey on the most vulnerable, on the elderly, on the disabled, on those individuals that aren't able to fend for themselves. They don't know, they're not lucid. I have been given information that certain candidates are paying the daycare centers to round up all of their clients, put them in these vans, and a week from now, they're going to be taking them out to vote. I can't talk about it just yet because I don't have the full information. I'm still working on it. Does this happen? How would you feel if your mom, dad, grandfather, grandmother, tia is being taken advantage of? Why do you think these candidates go to daycares? I might get in trouble, right? Because it's good for politicians to go to daycares, right? But you think they go to daycares because they're curious of the facility and maybe they want to bring some sort of resource to the business to be able to assist our elderly and disabled population? No. You know why they go there? Because they're after the vote. Plain and simple. Is this what's going to happen next week where designated early voting sites are going to see large vans full of daycares where people aren't even aware of who they're voting for? They're just given a sample ballot and say, oh, vote for this candidate here. If the candidates think that what they did in 2012, 2014, if they could do it today, they're mistaken, because the state is well aware, the federal government is well aware, and now people at the polls, they're there watching, they're there documenting, they're there taking notes. And if they see any irregularities happening, they're going to be vocal about it. Again, has Cameron County seen its fair share of voter fraud? According to 2015, the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, issued out a statement. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's Criminal Prosecutions Division will prosecute Brownsville residents Jose Garza and Rafael Elizondo, who were indicted for possessing marked ballots without the consent of the voter in violation of Section 86.006 of the Texas Election Code. Protecting the integrity of elections is essential to our democracy and a top priority of my administration. As long as there are criminals seeking to exploit our system of elections, we stand ready to investigate, prosecute, and restore confidence that the will of the people is heard. Elizondo, 64, turned himself into Cameron County authorities after being indicted for possessing more than 10 marked ballots without the consent of the voter during a 2012 primary runoff election. The charge is a third-degree felony punishable by confinement from 2 to 10 years. Garza, 37, was indicted on 5 counts of possession of a marked ballot without the consent of the voter in the same election. Garza was arrested February 25th by Attorney General's investigators. Each count is a state jail felony, punishable by confinement of 180 days to 2 years. The investigation was conducted by the Texas Attorney General's Office and the FBI with cooperation from the Cameron County District Attorney's Office. That is what is happening, ladies and gentlemen. Are we going to see voter fraud? Again, this isn't stuff that I make up. I'm not talking about this just to talk about, to throw shade. This has happened in our backyard. And it seems as if there is an ongoing thing with voter fraud. But now that the state, the FBI, investigators are heavily watching these races, are people still going to do that? Are they still dumb enough? People will do it just about anything for money. Hey, $20, $20. How do you see the Cameron County clerk's race? Reyes, how do I see that race? It's going to be an interesting race. It is my opinion that Sylvia Garza Perez is strong. Say what you want about her. There have been frictions within her office. Maybe she's not the best to get along with. Maybe people misconstrue her being a boss and being a friend, and they think, oh, she's my friend, she's not going to get rid of me, or oh, she's my friend, she's not going to come down hard on me. it would have benefited Denise Garza if there was another person in that race in the Democratic primary. Because the people supporting Denise Garza is Eddie Garcia and that faction. And that faction is also helping Steve Guerra. If there was a third candidate, Robert, in the clerk's race, it could have possibly got into a runoff. And then with the runoff, you just don't know. With the runoff, it's un volado. It's a flip. Anybody could win. We've seen it before. Carlos Masso, Luis Sáenz in the primary. Carlos Masso was up. In the runoff, Luis Sáenz ended up winning. Sheriff, Omar Lucio, Eric Garza. Omar Lucio won the primary. In the runoff, Eric Garza won the runoff. Tony Izaguirre, Eddie Garcia. Izaguirre won the primary. In the runoff, Eddie Garcia won the runoff. So again, anything could happen. Many people are alleging that that is the reason why Eric Garza is in that race. He was placed by Steve to force a runoff. Is that true? I don't know. And with Eric Garza being like in the corner, so quiet, not doing, don't move, don't breathe. Maybe that was his job, just to take votes away and force a runoff. I don't know. Or maybe he thinks that, being quiet is going to get him elected. I don't know. So how do I see that county race, Robert? I think Sylvia's strong. It would have benefited Denise Garza to have a third person in the Democratic primary, because once you have a third person, it's going to be a little bit harder for that person to get the 50% plus one vote to avoid a runoff. Now, is Denise Garza strong? Yes, she's strong. One thing that she's going to have to answer, and again, it's not going to affect her in any way, but one thing people should ask is, well, Denise Garza was in support of increasing my property taxes while at BISD. So then she doesn't care about the common folk. She felt as if the individuals who lived on a fixed income, it was their responsibility to bail out the school district for their mismanagement of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. That is how I see that county race. But I still see Sylvia Garza Perez coming out on top. That's just my opinion. Heard through the grapevine, mudslinging in one race. I think everyone knows what race you're talking about. I don't think there's a grapevine intervention message. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 1 week away from the start of early voting. Do candidates have a way to sway their election at the last minute? They want to try and persuade those undecided voters. Have you already made up your mind? Do you already have an idea of who you're going to vote for? Are you going to vote in early voting? Or are you the type that waits on election day because that's just your tradition? You wait until election day. Maybe you like to hear the candidates beg, hey, vote for me because of XYZ. I try my best to vote early voting. But how do you vote? Do you like to participate in early voting? Do you already know who you're going to vote for? Have you had all your questions answered by these politicians? Is there something that you need more information on and you're going to wait until You hopefully get that information until then, and only then you will make your decision on who you're going to vote for. They say that every vote counts. People are and I don't blame them. You know, people say, "Oh, why do I vote? They're rigged. Politicians are in it for themselves. What's going to happen?" Also, with voter fraud, I forgot to talk about it. That's why I need to write things down. You see, I try to be raw and genuine and real, but then se me escapa de la mente something that I was supposed to talk about. In regards to voter fraud, another thing that is happening, another very interesting thing that is happening, ladies and gentlemen, is that people are using one address and 10, 15, 20 people are voting out of there. People have told me that people from Matamoros are using certain addresses to be able to vote. Be careful, because the state and the government is watching. Now more than ever. And voter fraud is something that this administration, with the president, with our current attorney general, don't take these things lightly. Because, how Elizabeth likes to say, through the grapevine, we've heard that they are multiple addresses that are being used. So multiple voters that do not live there could vote. That's going to be interesting if they do. Something to keep an eye out for. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Franco Legal TV. Best believe Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday to Friday religiously. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about campaign finance reports. Should be a doozy. Should be interesting. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Franco Legal, and this is Good Morning Brownsville. Peace!